And we welcome you live to Night Shift Live here, the post game UCF football losing to Cincinnati 20-11. Although it was not really that close. We'll break it down for you. Eric Lopez here, along with our good friend Steven Brown, everybody. This is your second appearance on the show here. You're becoming a regular on the
I
program.
think I think this might be 3. I know I was
Great.
on there
Okay.
for the UNC one, and then I believe I also joined for Kansas State as well. So
Okay.
starting to get a
That
little
makes sense.
familiar.
Yes, we're like UCF football. We're going young on our roster here and just playing the young kids here, giving them snaps. Coming up, we'll break down the UCF loss to Cincinnati, the good, and then certainly the bad and the ugly from the game. Well, what does it mean moving forward? And much more. Of course, you can follow us at blackandgoldbanneret.com, where if you go to blackandgoldbanneret.com, you can read up on UCF men's soccer's big win over number 11 ranked Georgia Southern. Stephen knows a thing or two about that one. Big win there for them, as well as, of course, you can follow us on the YouTube channel, subscribe on the YouTube channel, and of course, follow us on all the social media platforms. Kyle Nash will have his recap, make the night grades for the game. He is working on that, and as we speak, and will join us in about a minute, as a matter of fact. So, anyway, Steven, what's your thought? Give me your opening thoughts on the game.
Yeah, so I think something that really stands out when you look at the stat sheet is average yards per completion. UCF is just under 8, 7.9 yards per completion, whereas Cincinnati is 15.9. And, it really just felt like UCF was running that dink and dunk offense, like really short yardage plays, whereas Cincinnati had those explosive plays that UCF was missing. They had them against Kansas State, those two, very long touchdowns, one of them being 70 yards. UCF was missing that today. And so everything was very short, kept getting to third down a lot. And they weren't having success on third down, and so that's just not a good recipe against a confident team, Cincinnati, coming off a big win against Iowa State, ranked Iowa State.
All right, let's bring in Kyle Nash, who's right there. Watched the game. We both bickered and argued because, well, that was the only way we could stay entertained and awake during this game. Honestly, you did us a favor. We all did ourselves a favor. That's not a game that will be a classic. That is one that we want to remember anytime soon. But Kyle, I know you were writing about it. You're gonna have your night grades up on blackandgoldbanneret.com here shortly. Mm-hmm. What was give me your thoughts here?
Well, and I know, and Steve, I'd hate to do this to you, but I know the box score watchers out there are going to be all disappointed about points per or play yards per play and various things like that. Here's the problem, gentlemen. Points are the only stat that matter, and Cincinnati had more. Like there are all sorts of statistical anomalies that are insane in this game. For one, if you have more plays, you're more likely to have fewer yards per play. Guys, UCF won the time of possession by damn near 20 minutes and lost the game. Now, granted, a lot of that is because of big plays, right? This is the kind of thing I haven't seen since Peyton Manning faced your Miami Dolphins, Eric Lopez, with Ronnie Brown running the Wildcat. And it was this kind of a disparity, and Peyton Manning still won. Now, I'm not here to say Brendan Sorsby is Peyton Manning. Matter of fact, if we're talking about him as a pro prospect, I'll take Daniels, who we saw last week with the Kansas Jayhawks, over him.
I agree with you on that.
Yeah. But I will say, and Eric, I'm going to say it up front so you don't think, or nobody out there thinks any different, that I think any different anyway. I did not expect UCF to win this game. Moreover, the fact they covered the spread, whether it's 13 or 10.5, blows my mind.
I would love that backdoor cover.
Yeah, exactly. Like I never would have seen that, even with the air quotes garbage time touchdown, because there's just too many dominant things that UCF did in this game, except score points, right? The real big stat, gentlemen, is the 10 penalties. Because for all the big plays we're talking about, the reason why we're not talking about them for UCF is it seemed like basically every single one of them was either called back by a penalty or there was a blatant pass interference the officials refused to flag. And I'm not a guy that tends to complain about officials, and I'm not here to say they were awful the whole game, but boy, howdy. And on both sides, I will grant UCF got away with a couple things as well. I'm not here to say it was all one-sided. Cincinnati had a lot of bailouts on what would have been a lot of big plays for UCF. But then again, how much can I blame the officials when guys are actually jumping on offsides on third downs where a big ball is completed, where UCF linemen are actually committing holding penalties that would have been, and everybody's going to bark and complain, Cam Fancher can't throw the long ball. And I'll grant it's not his strength. Listen, you remember Chad Pennington, Eric Lopez, you're old enough to know that. It's this style of offense. But if you're surprised that this was going to happen when Cam Fancher came out, check yourself. You played yourself. What Cam Fancher did for this team today was the best quarterback performance this year, period. Point blank, end of story. The numbers won't show it, but the way he dug them out of so many holes and so many self-inflicted wounds, Eric Lopez, Steve Brown, it should have been worse. And Cam Fancher and the defense kept it at least a game for a greater portion of the contest. And I have to give that credit.
I kind of agree with that, which I think is actually disturbing. That's
the point I was making the whole time in the text, and you were arguing with me. You had to have been entertaining yourself.
It's because yes, that is clear. I mean, I had to, man. It's early day. I want to point out, for those of you watching, don't worry, we'll get to the critical stuff first. But I do want to compliment the defense. The defense, Steven, you have the stats in front of you. Give me the stats on Cincinnati total yards offensively and how many yards per play they average in this game. Because coming in, Cincinnati was second in the country, 8 yards per play. That was a stat because that to your point, that's what they do. They are a big play offense. They're not a consistent offense, Cincinnati. Why? They're balanced. They're the most balanced they've been since Satterfield's taken over. But I agree with you, Kyle. I'm not a Sorsby guy. I think he benefits from what's around him. A good offensive line. Yeah. A good offensive line that's only given up 1 sack prior to this game. Well, at least going into this game. I mean,
that sack number is interesting. I'll put it that way. It's amazing what you can do with a balanced offense.
And it's not only that. I mean, I know you're not a fan of Pro Football Focus as to some of the advanced metrics out there, but their offensive line is graded out very high. Is my point.
Yeah.
So for whatever it's worth. Now, what's the stats there, Steven, on those two categories I just gave you?
Yeah, so we're coming in at net total yards at 306 with 48 plays ran, so 6.4 yards per play.
48 plays in the entire game is not a lot.
48 plays. If you would have told me before the game that you hold Cincinnati to those numbers, including 48 plays, the fact that you actually were on the field more, which I thought was a key in the game, and only 20 points, I would have taken it.
For sure.
The defense did its part. Yes, was there a play here and there, like the tight end broke open a big play? He's probably going to get drafted. So
the 40-yard touchdown early, too, is the one I have the biggest. That was a complete mental breakdown. I'm with you.
One play. Okay, they're not perfect.
Of course.
But 20 points under 400 yards. What was the yards per play again?
6.4, I believe.
That's insane.
The defense did their job, gave them a chance to win the game. And I think this defense can give you a chance to play in the game. So credit to Grinch and company. Again, I think that is a bright spot on this team. Unfortunately, they had no support from the offensive side.
Hold on. Here's where I got to challenge this statement, Eric, in one way. And again, please remember, for those out there, the lead was you need points to win football games. I get that. But where we got to be careful saying things like the offense gave no support, you know what they did today? If nothing else, Eric, they kept the defense off the damn field for an awfully long period of time.
Especially in the second half, but they were down 2 touchdowns, and it felt
like they were down 2 touchdowns and could only put a field goal up to close the half. Completely
right. When did you feel at any point in the game, guys, both of you, where you're like, hey, UCF can win this game? I feel confident going up against this Cincinnati team. I never felt that way, at least on the offense when UCF had the ball.
I think that's a good point. I think Cincinnati just had more confidence in this game. It felt like, they weren't getting to third down nearly as much. And the defense did force a couple of 3-and-outs. But I feel like for the most part, Cincinnati was able to move the ball without those penalties. and that would give them more confidence than UCF.
It looked like UCF. It was hard moving the ball. Like they would have to come up with 19 play drive because that's all they could do. They couldn't have a freebie and somebody break one for 50 yards or 60 yards or etc. I think it's a limited offense. It's a limited roster. We could go around. I actually agree with you. I thought Fancher actually played pretty well. I thought his movement was better. I think he's still a little slow on the decision making from time to time. I think he holds on to the ball sometimes. I think he makes the offensive line look a little worse than it actually is.
I agree.
How he holds on to the ball. But I actually thought, compared to certainly the Jacksonville State game, I do actually feel better if he is the starter next week against a West Virginia type or Oklahoma State type, that you could still win the game with Fancher. But I know we had this argument with others last week. I know you guys like this receiving core and think there's talent there. I don't know if there is. Who's the playmakers there on the receiver? And I understand you want to say maybe the quarterback plays a factor in that, but where is the threat in the perimeter, in the receiving game right now, guys? Sorry with you, Kyle.
Yeah, well, and I think we went over this. I don't think that playmaker exists. What I tell you is it's the aggregate. It's the core, right? And hey, listen, if that first downfield ball that was an obvious PI that was absolutely gross and would have at least set up Noah Ruelas for an early field goal, if that catch is completed, the mentality completely changes, at least for a while, because then at that point, Eric, it's like if the Magic could start hitting 3-pointers, right? The spacing changes, the mentality changes. They have to, at least for a little bit, stuff the box a little bit less in those scenarios because they might try to go long, right? But to your point, that playmaker, that long guy is supposed to be DJ Black. It was not today, right? And overall, they're looking for guys in space. And I know I should have probably answered quicker than this. Sorry, Steve. I'll say one last thing though. The part you're saying about Cam Fancher, and this is credit to coaching staff on Cincinnati's side. When they switched to sending 3-down linemen, it was less about trying to get pressure and force Fancher to make decisions. That's where they were capitalizing there too. And let's be honest, late in the game, I kind of felt like the O-line was playing lazy a bit too as well.
Was it lazy or did they wear down? Kyle, it's one of my theories. I brought it up last week.
Yeah. Well, and Steve, I'll let you do it. You have the stats in front of you, man. Please read off that time of possession for UCF's offense.
Yeah, so UCF ended with 39 minutes, 44 seconds on the possession time, and Cincinnati
40 minutes. I can't do nothing for 40 straight minutes. I don't play football.
It's impressive. You have 40 minutes of the ball. You only score 11 points. That's impressive.
Oh, God. Yeah, you have to be uniquely cursed or have a chop block because your O-linemen were loafing and did a bad job. That was terrible technique. I'll call that what it is.
Yeah, and I kind of think that is going off of what we were talking about before the show, where UCF just doesn't have that definitive playmaker. And so that's when they get in these positions where they're, having short yardage plays, and then they end up with 18 third down attempts and they're only able to convert 7 of them. And, that's going to hold back the offense a lot. And that's where they were only able to score 11.
Let's be careful with this. Now, granted, it's still a good stat, Steve. They did convert 3 fourth downs, right? And Jeff got me on this last week earlier this week on the weekly night shift. So that's fair too. But they did eventually convert for 10 first downs, 10 of 18. I'll accept that. It's obviously not great, but it's certainly better, fellas, than what a pedestrian offense is supposed to do.
The issue is, though, I believe in college football, you need a player that can break plays. In the NFL, you can get away with having a 10 to 15 play drive. I mean, certainly the Chiefs now, the last couple of years, have sort of tried to master that because teams have taken away the deep ball from Patrick Lamar Mahomes, Kyle. But
Yeah.
College, it's hard to win if you don't have a player that can break one for 50, 60 yards a play. Just one. It's hard to go 20 plays in college and be
And
successful.
Coach Frost has said the same, Eric. But what was it that destroyed Patrick LaVon Mahomes II and that loafing, slow, methodic, machine laboring style offense? A big mistake in the form of a 99-yard touchdown return. You can see me talk about that on the Duval Dive, by the way. Thank you for that, Eric.
Which is the only thing really that the UCF defense hasn't done is force turnovers.
Not this game they hadn't, correct.
Right. Well, I mean, what is there? And that's kind of the issue. If you don't have a good offense, sometimes you could try to force some turnovers, give your offense a chance in a short field. But that's really, and again, I'm just nitpicking on the defense, but you bring a good point. Jacksonville's defense, for example, in that game, helped turn the game around. This defense, as good as it's played, and I know Grinch has talked about this in media availabilities about forcing turnovers, and I think Grinch gave out a stat where if you force like 24 turnovers or more than that in a season, that usually equates to like a 9-3 record, based, a lot of stuff, defensive stat, which was fascinating.
Yeah,
if this offense doesn't get better, guys, I think the defense may have to even get asked to do more than they're even being asked for now, which means maybe force some turnovers. That's where we're at, I think.
And I think they've done a good job as of late, and so to have them step up as well, I think you need to ask the same of the offense as well.
Oh, of course.
Giving up only 20 points to Cincinnati, like I think Coach Grinch did a great job with managing that, and I think that does what you were saying, Kyle. It does help when the offense has 39 minutes in the time of possession. To keep the defense off the field. We're going to keep saying it. I mean, that's just a crazy stat. But yeah, to give the defense that sort of help, I think the defense can kind of help them in the same way, get a turnover.
Before you jump in again, Eric, I'm going to drop another stat here. All right. I think you said earlier, Stevie B, the Bearcats had 48 plays, right?
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
On 2 drives in the second half, UCF combines, doing my math in my head, for 36 plays alone on 2 drives. And the total points mustered is 3.
That's unbelievable.
That's the problem, okay? We can complain about everything else. Oh, Cam Fancher struggled throwing the ball downfield. Oh, run the correct route. All that is bupkis and window dressing. Score the damn football. Period.
But again, I will say this. Part of the problem is I think, especially when they're behind, team defenses are like, we're not going to give up big plays. We're going to be in front of you. We dare you. What do you got? Type of deal.
I don't really think you can complain too much about Cam Fancher's play today, especially what we've seen from Ja'Cory Brown this season. If Ja'Cory Brown was in there, we would have stayed at 3 points, maybe not even gotten that. So,
I mean, it's the first 200-yard passer in the season, Steve. Now, granted, if I said to you, Cam Fancher's going to throw the ball damn near 50 times, you're not feeling great about it either. But, I got to say, I'm not mad that the game plan went there,
So who starts next week?
It depends on Jackson's health, doesn't it?
So you would still start Jackson, though. If he's healthy, you would start Jackson.
I mean, yeah. Now, granted, I'm not in practice, so I have no way of knowing where he's at physically, how prepared he is. This is what I'm going to say, Eric. And you're talking about a struggling West Virginia team. I think Cam played well enough. And tell me if you agree with this concept, Steve. I think Cam played well enough. It's the best quarterback performance, as I said. Obviously, I think so. I think he played well enough to where they're wise to let Jackson get to 100% rather than have a situation like we saw a couple years back where they were forcing John Rice Plumlee against Kansas, right, Eric? I think they're better off waiting for 100% from Jackson. Cam proved he can do that today. What do you say to that, Steve?
Yeah, I think so. Like you mentioned, it was the first 200-yard game for a quarterback this season. Throwing the ball that many times isn't ideal, but he still threw the ball that many times, and the time of possession was what it was. So, and I do agree with that, letting Taven get fully healthy. That could have even played a factor in, I believe it was the Kansas game where he went down and had to get replaced mid-game. So Coach Frost has
at that point, right?
Yeah. And so Coach Frost talked a lot about like it being a unique situation for him having to deal with all this change at quarterback. It's not something that he said he's ever dealt with before. So I think, Fancher played well enough today where you keep that continuity next week. Give him a week in practice to let the O-line match up to his cadence and everything, because obviously, we saw a few false starts today. So I think so.
Snaps too, right? Which again, you're forgetting about him because Cam, I think, got a gain out of every single bad snap that he bobbled today.
Yeah, that was crazy.
This is absolutely insane. One last thing I want to put in, Eric, so I say it out loud so people don't think I'm just a box score watcher. I know I mentioned 49 times throwing the football. Let me be clear. I know a lot of those were screens, which are technically run plays with a long handoff as well. But still, 49 times is a buttload. Let me be clear. Go ahead, Eric.
No, it is a lot. And probably too much. But you're behind, so you don't have a choice.
You're behind. They're taking the run away. Of all the teams on this schedule, Eric, that are going to respect Miles Montgomery, bro. You know what I mean?
No, that's a great call. Great point. I think that's a great point. They were not going to make sure Miles Montgomery did not beat him. And boy, they did. Some comments here, folks. For sending your comments there. I know you're all bummed out.
We're here for therapy, as always.
We won't be on super long. Kyle's got, he's got to be a dad here shortly. He's sacrificed 3 hours of his life that we're all not going to get back watching that football game. Which is, it's times like games like those remind me, like, why do we do live shows again? But we do it because of you people. At least
we could have seen something out of Cincinnati. I was very unimpressed for the most part.
No, listen, I think you and I are misconstruing because we were arguing during the group text there about the game. I don't think Cincinnati's a great team. I'm not. That is not me. I'm just saying they're better than UCF, and I think part of the problem is in this rebuild, which is a rebuild. We've all said this. This is a team.
Some of us on this panel said 8 wins earlier. I'm just throwing that.
Wow, through the rookie. Welcome to being rookie. Welcome to rookie hazing.
Come on, yeah. I'm still on the freshman high, all right.
Mathematically, he's not wrong yet. Mathematically, he's not wrong yet.
Telling me there's a chance.
Yeah,
probably not.
Now, if you lose next week, as we'll get to, that math could really get hard. But I think this team, because of the rebuild and the limited talent, especially on offense I'm talking about, I think they got to play a lot better than a team like a Cincinnati. Definitely way better above their heads against teams like Texas Tech and BYU, which is coming in the schedule later in the year. Probably better ahead of their heads when you go to Baylor, as an example. Then the opponent actually has to play. Like Cincinnati's, unfortunately, we're in a situation where I don't think Cincinnati has to play a great game to beat UCF. Hey, I'd argue they didn't play a good game last year when they beat UCF in Orlando.
They absolutely did not. UCF just played worse. That game was far worse than this one, Eric. Oh my God.
Correct. And what's frustrating is there was a case there for UCF in that I thought, well, is Cincinnati going to come out a little hungover because of the win against Iowa State? They stormed the field last week. They're first ranked. Right. They're banged up. I mean, you saw the injury report. They had a bunch of guys out. Some of them, unfortunately, I bet you they say they kept them out because they felt they can get by against UCF. Unfortunately, I think we're in that category, Kyle, right now, where teams I don't think are like, ooh, we're scared of UCF. Now, maybe that'll benefit UCF down the road if somebody overlooks them. But I don't think Cincinnati really respected UCF because they felt they had enough with what they had, and they played a BC game and got, won the game. Because I don't think teams respect the UCF offense, and right now UCF hasn't given them a reason to respect their offense.
And by the way, on top of that, you're coming in with a backup quarterback. I'm sure all of that has its merits, my friend. So no,
fantastic point. Fantastic point there. We got some comments for you, Kyle. Penalties. Can it be fixed? And I know some of them you blame the officials, but some of them it was on them.
No calls. It's the no calls that I blame the officials on. The penalties, as much as they are for the 10, I'm fine with that. I feel like a lot of, if not most of them, were correct. Yes. It's the no calls I'm complaining about. I get letting them play, but there's a line. Yeah. it's a good call out. 10 penalties for 75 yards is obviously not going to do it, right? And I'm gonna quote somebody credible here, right? Who said, Steve, you might have been with me, that when you're an offense that's looking to try to score with long sustained drives, it's a challenge because all it takes is one mistake at the wrong time to completely throw you off. Now, this person with whom I believe Stevie B was present when he said this was head coach Scott Frost, right? So we're in a position, guys, where this offense is running for a style that I'm willing to bet the coach has not built this team for. And they still ran it with some level of success. They just didn't score the damn football, right? And this is why I'm glad I'm not done writing yet, because I'm going to need a little bit more time to ponder what I'm going to grade the offense on this, because they did awful on the most important thing, points. Duh. But there's so many other things they got right, but then the penalties kill them too. And the question being such that it was from Robert Malone there, like, can it be fixed? Some of them, yes, some of them, no. Like, I'm not going to be able to fix linemen loafing and being tired for that, I'm going to air quote, chop block call. Did the ref do it because of safety? Yes. Do I think it was an actual intentional chalk block? No. One guy made a block and the other lineman was lazy and flopped to make a block instead of actually doing something with it, which I personally hate, by the way, but I digress.
By the way, let's talk about Cincinnati showing that 3-3-5 look late there defensively that the offensive line struggled with, especially in the second half there, Kyle. Which, by the way, historically, that is the defense Luke Fickell used against Josh Heupel to beat Josh Heupel, ironically enough. So I thought that was fascinating that Satterfield dug into the Luke Fickell play calling, defensive schemes against UCF, because that's what they used against UCF back in the day. Fickell may have used some of that too against Frost, and Frost his last year, of course, didn't work. But definitely used it against Heupel, and definitely used it in 2019 to beat Dylan Gabriel and the Knights. That's when the rivalry kind of turned a little bit there. What did you see there? Because the
NFL starting quarterback Dylan Gabriel. Good luck with that, Browns. Anyways,
that tells you how much of an illegitimate franchise the NFL franchise Cleveland has become, or has been. Really,
but you digress. Yes,
digress. Thank you. What did you see? What did you see there? What was it about that scheme that gave the UCF some fits?
Well, I mean, you pointed it out earlier, right? You Cam is slower in the decision. And then somewhere they're realizing, hey, UCF's had the ball a long time. And I heard Eric Lopez tell me how long an offense is on the field could eventually get an O-line gassed, which, again, these numbers look like that. You are correct, okay? I know we touched on it before, I think I said something like, it can happen. This was it. This was that looks like, right? So when they're gassed, I'm sending only 3, knowing that an old lineman in his head has a clock that says, okay, I have 3 seconds to stop this guy. And you are challenging him to do it for upwards of 5. This is why you're losing your one-on-ones on the outside. Eventually, I even think they switched out Rubel. I didn't see who they put in to replace him, but I don't know if it was injury or fatigue, but he was starting to get whooped on that 3-man front, and they switched him out. So, yeah, I think there was an element of that worked. And I know everybody's like, well, this blue line is bad anyway. Well, no, I don't think they're bad as a rule. They're just not as good as last year's. And at this point, though, you could argue this group shouldn't be getting gassed. I think we're starting to see some light effects of having time that had to have been taken off for bereavement, perhaps catching up with them only just now. And hopefully they can get, that worked out. Maybe some more conditioning needs to be done to account for the fact that this offense has to play like this now.
I also don't think they're deep. Like, I don't think they have a ton of options that they can go in and, hey, this guy can come in and give this guy a breather, or if this guy is banged up, you can plug in this guy. That's what I mean by because we always hear about defensive linemen getting worn down as the game goes on if the offensive line is working them. And you played offensive line, Kyle. You can get exhausted if defensive linemen are just constantly, not only from a physical standpoint, but think mentally. If defenses are showing you different looks at the box, they're bringing this guy in from this side, they're bringing in this guy from this side. Oh, they're bluffing going. That has to mentally, for 60 play, that's got to also play a factor if you're not accustomed to seeing that, which some of these guys haven't, based on the lack of playing of experience, or lack of and I don't want to say, it makes it harsh here, IQ, because sometimes if you don't have experience, you don't have the IQ to figure things out on the fly.
Those things
or
are
or just experience playing somewhere else. They probably were sitting on the pine and are not used to playing 60, 70. Just a combination of things. Because I do think I agree with you on this. I think the offensive line's getting too beat up by some. They're acting like, I think their pass protection was pretty good.
For the most part.
And I think their offensive line, especially, and more so last week, was where this idea from me came from. I thought the offensive line was fine for the first half or so, but as the game went on, it felt like, and yes, Kansas made adjustments, but I felt that the offensive line started wearing down as the game went on, or at least looked like that. And I just wonder if all of that I've just theorized is a factor in this.
And let's take that bus ride home, right? So you said in Kansas you felt like they wore down. I don't have to look it up. I know they didn't throw the ball 49 times against Kansas, right? So in this instance, they did. And when you're an O-lineman, listen, you're there to run block if you're playing O-line. That's the fun stuff. Pass blocking, yeah, okay, that's cool, whatever. Okay, we're going to Samu wrestle, fine. Where the real mental stimulation, where the real fun of dominating another human being and having that battle takes place is the run game. And I'll say this, right? We mentioned the 49 times run. UCF ran the ball, I'm going to say only 41, but you have to know for a fact that most of that was in the previous 3 quarters, right? So I think there's that element of just being like, pass block again, meatloaf for dinner again. Of course, the O-line would make it about food, right? But it's that redundant feeling that also plays into everything else you're talking about with the mental stuff and the physical stuff, what they went over in practice, what might be different. Expectation, you're practicing to be prepared for chaos, not to be perfect in the easy scripted moments. They found chaos and were in chaos in the fourth quarter, down 2 scores at one point there too, before they got that final touchdown, which I'm glad Cam got a touchdown because he played well enough to win this football game. It just, the stuff around him was not going the way it needed to.
Steven, your thoughts here? We're going to play, by the way, in a moment here, Scott Frost's post-game reaction from Cincinnati. I'm working on that as we speak. So I'll set that up for you guys here in a moment. So in the meantime, Steven, while I work on that, Steven, your thoughts before we go to that.
Yeah, definitely O-line play has to be better. But I did think that Cam Fancher took a lot of time in his decision making. There were some instances where I think he could have gotten that ball out quicker. But he sort of compensated for that with his running ability.
Oh, absolutely.
I know you were talking about those bad snaps, Kyle. There were a lot of them, which is a little concerning, but
counted 3. That's entirely too many. Yes.
Yeah. And so, but he was able to, make something out of nothing there. And so I don't think it played, those bad snaps played as much of a factor because of his ability to turn them into something. But I do think that Fancher can get rid of the ball a little quicker, even if he has to take the check down, but that was a lot of the game plan today was getting the ball out short and it was similar in the running game too. There weren't a lot of big runs. A lot of Fancher's runs were short. And I know there was that one that Miles had that was he was close to hitting that gap.
Shoestring away from going to the house.
Yeah, exactly. And so and going back to what I've said, that was what UCF was missing, were those
home
big explosive plays like that one. If Miles is able to hit that hole and score that, I believe it was still 17-3 there, so that would have made it a 1-score game. And then that
Potentially.
probably gives your defense a lot more confidence, gives them that nice jolt of energy. And then because they did play well. So if they get that stop there, get the ball back to the offense, in a 1-score game, you never know what can happen.
For a team that's rebuilding, that's in a hole multiple scores, that's shooting themselves in the foot, that's not getting the benefit of the doubt, or is just basically blatant. It's not Kansas City Chiefs on Monday Night Football bad, but pretty bad, blatant defensive pass interference calls that are missed in big moments that could set up for more points too, right? For a team experiencing all of that, they did pretty well. Now, if I'm a Bearcat fan listening to this, but we were missing a lot of our defense, acknowledged. I had even alluded to the fact that maybe this is the opportunity for this offense to do some stuff and move the ball against Cincinnati. Well, they clearly did that. But again, you got to score the damn football. I think it'll, I don't think we can put it any clearer than that.
You know who I think will agree with you on that, Kyle? Head coach Scott Frost, who just spoke to the media. As rough as that was for you to watch on TV, Kyle, probably was just as bad for my friend Brandon Hellwig of UCFsports.com, who's, along with the other local media, handful of media, they went up to Cincinnati, had to witness this in person. Thank you to Brandon in advance of UCFsports.com for the video here you're about to watch and listen to. Scott Frost's post-game following UCF's loss to Cincinnati. Here's what Frost had to say, and then we'll be right back to react to what he had to say.
I'm disappointed for the guys and encouraged at the same time. And this was my message to them, that the fight was unbelievable today. The effort was unbelievable. I think they're one of the better teams in our league, and we can go toe-to-toe with them. But in order to get it done, the details got to be better. As well as our defense played, we busted one coverage and gave them a touchdown, dropped a tight end on another one and set up a touchdown. And those guys are good right now. They can be great if we eliminate those things. Offensively, we're young and grown with a lot of young players, but we were plenty explosive and consistent until we got in the red zone. And that's 3 weeks in a row that we've shot ourselves in the foot on a lot of drives, and that's got to get better. And the discouraging part is we're fighting with these guys and not winning, and against pretty good teams. The encouraging part is the stuff going wrong we can fix, and we'll go back to work and work even harder to get those things fixed.
Scott, you had Cam start the game today. What did you see out of him, and what was Taven's status, and could he have played if you needed him, and was there consideration to put him in the game at any point?
Yeah, we went in the game with Cam starting and Davi as our number 2 option, and Taven as emergency if we needed him.
You talked about mistakes, 10 penalties, 75 yards, and that's been a season-long challenge. How do you correct that 6 games in?
Well, we got to keep working at it. Some of the penalties, I've got to look at the tape and see. I thought there were some the other way that we didn't get, and I got to look at the tape and see. I don't want to sound critical until I see it. We came out on the first drive and dropped, and we're moving it and dropped a ball that would have been a big play for us, and hit another play, and our receiver was on the ball covering up a tight end instead of off on a basic formation for us, and that hurts us. We overcame a holding on another drive and then got a chop block later in the drive. Those things hurt you, and we played well but not disciplined enough and not with enough detail. And
4 or 5 false starts. What's most frustrating about that penalty?
Where they're happening is the most frustrating to me, because they're happening for the most part in the red zone. It's starting to be a pattern, and we have to address that. We went round and round whether to be on a silent cadence or not this week, and we started without and finished with a clap cadence just to try to solve it. But I don't think that was the issue. It's just in clutch moments, being able to calm yourself down and hear the snap count.
How would you Cam Fancher and how he performed in the start? I mean, it looked like he was hitting receivers in the first half. There were just guys around him maybe making mistakes.
I thought he played really tough. I haven't watched the tape yet, but I know he played tough. Whether the ball was always in the right place or not, we'll evaluate on the film. I thought he made some great throws in the first half. We missed on a couple shots. He made some other ones that got called back. Again, it's self-inflicted wounds on a lot of the things. And, once they got up 2 scores, you weren't, the way they play defense, we weren't going to get behind their secondary anymore. And then it was more of a grinded out, completed in front of them and run the ball type of game. And we still executed that pretty well until we didn't and made mistakes that cost us drives. And, any game in this league where a defense can hold an offense like that to 20, we got to be good enough on offense to have a chance to win or win.
Scott, what does it say about your defense? You just mentioned them. I mean, it seems like the next game up where they stepped up and were able to hold the team down and give you guys at least an opportunity to be in the game.
Yeah, I think that the 2 offenses we played the last 2 weeks are 2 of the better ones in the Big 12, and we went toe-to-toe with them. I told this defense, like, even at the end of the game, when the game was probably over down 9, they still fought and got off the field, and that says a lot about who they are. And they need to take the next step now, and they're really good right now. We can be great if we eliminate the mistakes. It's the same thing. Their 2 big plays were on mistakes, and that's really a focus thing more than anything.
Cam got plenty of yards on the ground, but not much for Miles and Jaden. You've been talking about making the offense more creative. How do you explain struggles in the running game for those 2?
1, they're splitting time. 2, we kind of got behind in the game and we needed to throw it a little more. What they were giving us later in the game was kind of the quick passing game, and we were trying to take advantage of that. Miles is an elite player, though, and we need to make sure and get him the ball when it's appropriate. And that was kind of the game plan coming in, was to lean on the run game. But after we, shot ourselves in the foot on the first couple drives and got down by a couple scores, we still tried to commit to the run game, but at that point, you're kind of in try to catch up mode.
Blocking-wise, how would you evaluate what you saw from field level?
We had a lot of different guys out there. A couple guys got nicked up. I think their run defense is pretty good. And when they're in a call to stop the run, they get a lot of hats around the ball really fast. The nose guard, I think, is one of the better players in our league. I'll have to watch the tape, but I've been pleased with the progress those guys have been making, and kind of like everything else, we just got to be a little more consistent.
Scott, you had a couple of early 4th down situations where you guys weren't able, 4th and short, you guys weren't able to convert. How frustrating is that to not get maybe 2 yards when you use that? Does that go back to the penalties and things and mistakes like you mentioned?
Yeah, I don't remember both of them until I watched the tape, but I know on one we, false started and would have got the first down and we were yards short. And so again, you're not going to get every 4th down, but you got to put yourself in position that when you make the play like we did on that play, that we should have been first down by 3 yards. Instead, we're 1.5 yards short. Mistakes and it almost feels like it's kind of necessary growing pains that we're going through, and I wish it wasn't necessary, but. Man, a lot of the things that happened, we addressed with the team. Like, this is going to come up. We got to be better. It's going to get louder in the red zone, going toward their stands. The formations that we didn't get right. There's a lot of things that we talk about. Getting the ball up a little quicker on the shot to make sure that we don't outrun it. There's a lot of things we talked about before the game, but then we didn't execute. So that's on the coaches and the players to just find that little more detail to make those things work.
Recently, you said you saw shades of 2016 in this team. Are you still seeing a team you think can break through over the second half of this season?
Yeah, my message to the guys was, man, they're better than we were week 1. Week 1 we played like we had diapers on against a team, and we found a way to win. And the last 3 weeks, we've played good Big 12 competition, and we've gone toe-to-toe with them. We haven't found a way yet. Now we're 3-3. There's no reason we can't go try to win the rest of them. That's not saying we will, but this team is getting better, and if we can take the next step with just detail, execution, and discipline, we can be even better.
I know you spoke with Coach Satterfield after the game. Can you just speak on it? They ran a little video tribute dedicating the game to Sean Clark.
Yeah, that's been a weight on me and our team since it happened. I just love the man. And it's touching that, other people are doing what they do to at least honor him. That's a tough thing to go through for a team. I think the kids are responding well, but it was heavy and it was emotional. I know he meant a lot to a lot of people, and it's really good to see people honor him.
Scott, we've asked you before about this, but in the locker room now, it's been a 3-game losing streak. What have you seen from these guys? How have they responded to the fact that they've had some struggles over the last couple games?
No, you guys can try to write an article about the guys getting down and giving up. It ain't gonna happen. Not with this group. We're frustrated. I'm frustrated. I'm also, in a strange way, encouraged by just the fight and the improvement that's happening. The team we just played could end up in the Big 12 championship really easy if they keep playing the way they're playing. And if we don't make mistakes, we're right there, or have a chance to win, or win. So this team's not going to give up. Are we frustrated? We've lost the last 3. Yeah. I don't think we played our best game in Manhattan. Felt like we had one last week and kind of gave it away. And this week we didn't have it, but we should have been right there. And the things that we need to fix are really fixable. So we're going to, as a coaching staff, double down on those things.
Dropped a couple on the road. How important is it to serve court at home and protect on the field?
Yeah, we just got to go back, get to work, and have fun as a group, practicing this week and try to be even better next week. And our best is going to be good enough in this league if we play our best. I don't know if we've done that yet.
Oh, okay. Yeah, good. Okay, that's good. Appreciate it. Thanks, Coach.
All right. All right, boy. All right, we're back. That was Kyle, I envy your producing skills. That's all I'll say. It's not
Hey, you
easy.
can check them out. You can check them out twice a week on the Bolt Blitz Uncut.
I know. You make it look very easy.
I need to get me one of those, Kyle.
Holy macro.
This was sent to me. I used to just say, "Bing."
Anyway, very true. Gentlemen, your thoughts with Scott. One thing I've appreciated about Scott, I've always appreciated about covering Scott the first time, especially year 2 in his first run here, and even here, his honesty. He doesn't sugarcoat things. He will tell you. He will not duck the questions. I did enjoy the little sidebar there about you guys are going to write about this team. And God, so I don't know, Kyle, take notes there, but
that's the last thing I've written about this squad. Let the record go. Okay.
Very, very fair. I think, yeah, that's fair. Give me your thoughts, Kyle. Your initial reaction to what he had to say.
I mean, I feel like he said basically a lot of things that we just did, right? So I don't know what more I would add to it. I could point out the particular drives he was talking about. Even what was it? The one down the field where we probably could have had a penalty. That was the second drive of the game. The one with the 15-yard shot block or whatever he mentioned. That was the one in the third quarter for 17 to no points. Listen, I think he's spot on. My pen or my keyboard, if you want to be that technical about it, in no way, shape, or form or fashion had anything implying that this group might even be close to trying to give up.
One thing that stood out to me, Kyle, and I don't know if you picked up on that, he mentioned how he is noticing a trend that when they get to the red zone, false starts. I found that fascinating. What do you make of that? That their false starts, a majority of the false starts are happening when they get into the red zone. What do you make of that when he says that?
I mean, the pressure's higher, the pressure's thicker, right? And if it's the O-line that's doing it, you have a lot smaller space to work with. And I know what you're thinking that, you're always on the line. The space is limited. There are fewer dudes. Let me check that. You could cover more space with fewer dudes in the red zone, which means you can send more. So you have more calculation to do at the line, right? So that's what I would attribute it to. Let me put it in scientific terms. Lemon booty. They got tied up. I got all tight. They had the lemon booty, so they jumped offside.
We got a studio audience that
I myself, as the student of the game, has a student on the game here. You know,
that's fair, more than fair. Steven, your thoughts on what Frost had to say?
Yeah, you know, every time I come on night shift, I feel like I'm talking about penalties. But
what a take.
But I mean, he was talking about him in the press conference too, and I think it's important to note. He said it's where the penalties are occurring is what's really hurting them, and I think that really just tells the story. You know, big plays. You know, I keep talking about big plays. They had those big plays, and they were taken back by penalties. They get close to scoring. Penalties takes them out of position to score. And like Kyle said, you got to score the damn ball, and penalties kept them from doing that. So, you know, I think he I think he summarized it well with that.
If I ever write a book, if I'm going to write a book, Stevie B, just like kind of like Keyshawn Johnson did, I'm going to call it "Score the Damn Ball." How about that?
You're going to remember one thing.
3 situational penalties. That's was interesting. And that's what, you know, people wonder, why did you, what's the point of doing media availabilities with coaches and stuff like that? That's the stuff that you're looking for from a media standpoint, to hear, to learn some stuff there. I think and I really appreciate Frost doing that, because there was a football coach back who followed him here at UCF. I won't mention that, never gave those type of answers. Kyle, am I right on that? Let's just leave it as that.
I think never is a bit much. I was able to translate. I was able to translate a few things and write some stuff, you know, on blackandgoldbanneret.com. That being said, it was never as clear, right? I had to do a lot more translation. It took me a lot longer to ride the bus to answers, so to speak.
All right, very good. Roger, you're wrong. UCF was an underdog in all these 3 games. To suggest these losses are unacceptable. They lost to 2 teams that for sure are going to be bowl teams, maybe 3. We'll see if Kansas State turns around their season. And 2 of those 3 were on the road. So I don't agree with that. Like, again, like,
yeah, unacceptable strong. I agree.
This ain't 2018, 2017. This ain't this time. I will say this, though. Having said that, I will say this, gentlemen, as we start wrapping up here. I do think next week is a must win. This is now the first time I'm going to say it's a must win. The reason I say that is West Virginia's got as many problems, if not more problems, than UCF has.
Believe it or not.
This is why this game's on TNT. Shout out to JB Long and Mike Golick Jr., who will be calling the game. What a special start time of 1 Eastern, Kyle.
Hey, yes, I am down.
It's not NFL Sunday.
What's that?
It's not NFL Sunday. Why are we starting at 1 here?
You know what it'll also be, though? Not 1 a.m. when I'm leaving the stadium.
Fair.
Let's think about that.
I like that. We like that.
It is fair. It is fair. I agree with that. So, to me, this is a must win, because if you want to get to the bowl game, right, which has been, like, Kyle, what you said, we both had them at 6-6. Did you have them losing? Now, did you have them losing the game or beating Cincinnati before the year?
I probably had them winning. Now that I'm thinking, I don't remember. I'd have to look. That was one of those where I had to scratch my head a lot. But yeah, the math would make sense if I said if I had them beating Cincy and losing to West Virginia. All we're going to do is flip flop those games, and we could see 6-6. So I mean, that'll work for me.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. If you want to get to 6, the more likely scenario is you got to win the West Virginia game, the Oklahoma State game, and then you steal another game where you'll win at home against Houston. Maybe you steal a Baylor game on the road, but that's the math. I don't believe, gentlemen, that if you lose next week to West Virginia, that a bowl season is in. I just don't see the path. Is my point.
It does get harder at that point. I think that's an accurate statement. Sorry, Steve. I mean, may the math favor you. I'd rather see an 8-win team. Because maybe it would be a better bowl game than 6-6 for sure. I don't know. But then again, it could be said if it's 6-6, they have a bowl game where they stay local. Erica Lopez. Not that I'm trying to find a cure to the possible ill of a 6-6 season. But
and I do think this. You know, I remember, ironically enough, I think we did a night shift after the Cincinnati game last year where I felt Gus panicked. Remember where he benched Jefferson? and brought in Brown to start. And Brown wasn't good against Cincinnati, lost that game. And I thought that was a panic move. They lost that game, and the season went just completely just at that point, they were lost cause at that point. I think they only ended up winning one more game the rest of the year, which was the Arizona Space game that year. My point is, I think West Virginia is that game. Now, the good news is you heard Frost there in the post game. He's not panicking, and I think he's got the right message to the guys like, hey, we're not that far away. I think that's the right approach to keep the belief on his players. That being said, Kyle, I think next week's a must-win. You lose next week, I don't know. I at that point, 4-8 could be on the table. Like 5, any, you know what I mean? It could go south. That's my point.
Yeah, no, the degree of difficulty to the bowl season gets more difficult. And I mean, to your point too, whether or not it was a good week statistically or schematically rather to pull KJ Jefferson for Cincinnati or not, I think schematically Cam Fancher is good enough to beat West Virginia. So, I'm still confident about that game, it being a home game, all the things, I feel good about that there too.
Steven, I want your thoughts from this perspective, because you're a student. And I only ask that because, number one, will students, you think, be there for a 1:00 kick on homecoming? Will they stay for the whole game? There was some criticism, I think unfairly, that some left the second half of the Kansas game when it started raining, whatever. It's all a bunch of nonsense.
Crowds do that. It's all stupid.
Right. So, but I'm curious about the atmosphere because West Virginia will probably, I think, Kyle, you were there 2 years ago. There was a sea of West Virginia fans, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like in that game to the point where I remember watching the game and you could hear Country Road being sung by the players and the fans in the fourth quarter. Right. I'm curious about the atmosphere for this game because I do believe the fans can help the team win a game from an energy standpoint. And I think these guys need some positivity from that standpoint. You heard Scott talking about Clark and the passing of him and how that's still with them. And that's why I'm very cautious about the offensive line talk because nobody can relate to what these guys have gone through from an offensive line standpoint. So I don't, it's just, I feel bad when I discuss them in good, bad, whatever. And I try to keep that in mind of what these guys have been through because that is beyond football stuff. So, but my question to you, Stephen, as somebody who's on campus a lot, what do you think the atmosphere will be like on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely going to need the help. It's called the bounce house for a reason. So you definitely want to get it packed out. But as a student, UCF always sends us texts to claim the tickets. And towards the beginning of the season, you have to get in this virtual queue for those tickets Monday at 10:30. And if you get in at 10:50, you didn't get a ticket for the first game. Where on the other hand, for the Kansas game, they sent out the text at 10:30, and on Tuesday, my friend got a text that tickets were still available to claim for guaranteed entry. And so that shows a drop off of students claiming tickets. And that was before we dropped the game to Kansas. And then now Cincinnati, I would hate to say it, but I do think that the fan base is, gonna lose a little bit of hope with that, especially it going to a 1:00 kickoff. I think it being sort of earlier, if the rain can hold off, that has also been a big factor in the crowd amounts, amount of people in the crowd. So 1:00 kickoff, it is homecoming week. I know there's a lot of events going on campus where they're going to be promoting the game. So that could also play a factor. But like I said, with not all claims for Kansas being gone on Monday and there still being tickets on Tuesday, especially for a night game, night games are what people get hyped for in college football. And the fact that there were still tickets available on Tuesday kind of worried me about that. And now especially dropping the game to Kansas and then Cincinnati, I don't, my faith is a little shaky in the Knights faithful for Saturday, but I hope they prove me wrong.
Well, and then, hey, Mother Nature's done us no favors from a PR standpoint too, right? Can we have one day without rain? We cleared the delay hurdle.
I hope it's next Saturday. I plan on being on campus. There's a lot of homecoming activities going on, as you mentioned. Baseball and softball are doing their alumni weekend. Volleyball's doing alumni weekend. The Hall of Fame is Friday night. Salute to Mike Sims Walker, Cornell Green, and Alex Haynes. The 3 football players will be inducted alongside Dexter Lyons for men's basketball, Mariam Metzges for volleyball, and Ariel Scott for track and field. So you're right. It's going to be a lot. I'm going to be at the Hall of Fame on Friday night. I do intend on being there at the pregame. We'll see where I am during the game. I mean, we'll figure out where we'll do in the postgame from later. Let's just get to that, to your point. Weather will play a factor. Thank you for correcting me, Eric Edwards. You're right. I forgot. Man, I tried to mind. AJ Colson started the Cincinnati game, which proved my point. They just panicked. It was a panic.
I thought you said EJ. I guess I misheard.
I think I said Brown by mistake. So good call. Okay. Good catch on that.
Yeah, he's right.
Hey, Gus can't win in October either. Florida State lost to Pitt, so neither team can win in this state. By the way, I'm convinced, by the way, Miami's the only good team we have in the state. Like, they're the only legit team. Everybody else is whatever. Like, whatever.
Billy Napier did enough to keep his job, Eric Lopez.
For now. He's got A&M. He's got A&M as we record this. So no, we'll see what happens. You're right though, Steven. In fact, you're gonna have to keep us on tap on that, because I do wonder what the crowd will be like. I don't think it'll be packed. I tend to agree with you on that, Steven. Which might be good news for me if I have to bolt early to do the post-game show, because parking traffic won't be as bad, so I'm not going to complain about it. But we'll see how that goes. Give me your thoughts, gentlemen, as we wrap up here. Your takeaways now from this game moving forward to West Virginia, which, like I said, I'm going to keep saying this. I think it's a must-win. I think it's a big game. I didn't expect them to win these 3 games, in all fairness. 2 of the 3 on the road. They had a chance against Kansas or a deal like that. So, but to me, the West Virginia game, guys, if you want to make a bold game, and plus, you're going to measure up against another head coach that's literally on the same timeshare. You both came in the same year. You're both back for a second term at your alma mater. Who's ahead of who? I think there's a big game for a lot of reasons. Your takeaways.
Steve, go ahead. You first on this one, bud.
Yeah, I harping on the penalties again, I think that played just a huge factor. And it's also been a constant throughout the season. Like, I feel like in every post-game press conference, penalties are brought up, and it's talked about how the penalties need to be corrected. So we'll see next week if they are able to correct those penalties. But they played a huge factor today in taking away those explosive plays for UCF. And so we definitely want to see next week clean football and the ability to push the ball down the field in less plays than they did today. And, we love the time of possession that we had today. But, sometimes I think you can sacrifice that for, a big explosive play, because you got to score the football.
Oh my goodness, Eric, he's been doing too many shows with you. The rookie here, you're supposed to give him a hope on your final play. No, I'm joking. You're absolutely correct on everything. But here's what I saw. And by the way, this is me practicing when I'm preaching. Take notes here. No, but listen, my main takeaway, the gap between Cam Fancher and a less than 100% Taven Jackson is far less than I thought it was. That's my takeaway, right?
Well, let me ask you this. Scott said it. Fancher was the starter. Davi Belfort was the backup. Jackson was the emergency quarterback. What does that mean for next week? Do you think Jackson is this Fancher's game next week, or do you think that? I mean, actually, we won't know. I don't expect you to know the answer to that, but I thought that was very telling that neither Brown or Jackson was officially the backup. If something would have happened to Fancher, it sounds like Davi would have come in.
You can't rule it out, right? And what's interesting there too, A, we've established that Jakari's still pretty hurt, right? B, that Taven being that third stringer, he's waiting perhaps to get that 100%. So I think those are all the positive things. And we're not watching him practice, Eric. Maybe there's some stuff that's taken place that Scott Frost saw that he liked. Can't rule that out either.
All right. So that's the story, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see. final thoughts here. We'll wrap it up here. Kyle, tell the audience what you're working on. And then we got a busy week here, boys. We got basketball media days. We're going to be covering Monday, men's and women's basketball media days. Kyle, are you there? Are you there with me?
I will be not only at the Scott Frost availability with a couple players for football on Monday. I will go there immediately over to basketball media day right after that. You guys might be enjoying lunch. I will be uploading whatever stuff we get to the KnightShift podcast, KnightShift YouTube channel, and get all that rolling there too. And then after media day and everything's going, while stuff's uploading, I'll give you Frost Bites. So we'll have that on Monday. I know I haven't done Frost Bites the past couple weeks, but with the Sean Clark article that Jeff Sharon put up, and then of course I had Magic Media Day not all that long ago, right? So I was busy that Monday as well. Then the Chiefs Jags on Monday with the Duval dive. I've been everywhere, fans first. Fortunately, no more Monday events to get in the way of me covering UCF. So you will have Frost Bites, which will come up after basketball media day, and then there'll be more basketball stuff upcoming from Stevie B and Don Struble upcoming here too, as we sweep into that too. And I don't know, I won't promise for him, but I wouldn't be surprised if Bryson Turner has some stuff for women's basketball from media day in the nightcap this week.
It's good. It's gonna get busy. Basketball season's around here.
And then you got Hall of Fame stuff coming. Garrick Lopez, we're everywhere. I don't know. I would ask Steve what else he's doing, but I know I forgot what I'm doing already.
It's a lot. It's a lot is what you're doing. That's the answer to the question there, ladies and gentlemen. So we'll see. We're gonna learn a lot about the quarterback room. Well, we probably won't. They're not gonna tell us a ton. But
I don't know what you can know this quickly. I'll put it.
Keep an eye out for the or.
Yes.
A lot of ors, a lot of maybes, a lot of ifs. Yeah, a lot of the stuff. 1 o'clock kickoff, UCF and West Virginia. TNT. Yes, I said TNT. They lost the NBA, but boy, they got Big 12 football instead. Not sure that's a fair trade, but I'll let others decide that. 1 o'clock kick. We'll be on Night Shift Live. We might be on site at the stadium, or I might be back here. We'll see. Or maybe Steven will take over. He's clearly the best of the three.
I mean, I know I'll be on site. That's the punchline.
All right, everybody. For Kyle Nash, for Stephen Brown, I'm Eric Lopez. We hope you've enjoyed this live edition of Night Shift. Check out blackandgoldbanneret.com for all the latest. We'll talk to you soon.